Welcome back, everyone, to Mindful Leadership Beyond Borders with Betska and Raj and our amazing guest, Jason Costain. And we are discussing one of the most important topics that we could ever discuss here on this podcast. And it's about fraud and scamming. And the thing is, because we work internationally now, right? I mean, look at Raj and I. He's in India, I'm in Canada, Jason's in South Africa. I mean, international travel, international business is very common, and so we can get trapped into, being scammed and being frauded. And Jason wants to talk a little bit about vulnerability. So let's start with that for this part two, Jason.
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely key, and you know, it, the vulnerability comes in many forms. So the example I talked about earlier is, my parents got a text message saying that I'd got a new phone number. It happened just as I was traveling, so that situational
Yeah,
vulnerability was
yeah,
amazing. And I think in future, what we're going to see with scams is the scams are going to be more plausible. The timing is going to be more um, perfect, and the context is
yeah.
going to be relevant to you. So,
Mm-hmm.
that therefore you've got to be more on your guard. But vulnerability comes in several different forms. So, for example, you might be financially vulnerable. You might be struggling with cash. So therefore you might be more likely to try and risk a bit of money to invest to try and get back more. You might
Yeah.
be, um, you know, you might be emotionally vulnerable. You might have lost your husband a year ago. You might be lonely. Therefore,
Mm-hmm.
you're desperate to meet someone. You're on a dating site. You could fall for a romance scam. You could be just very, very busy. You're on a school run. You've got a lot of pressure going on in your life. Maybe there's something going on. You had an accident in your car, a small accident this morning. You get a phone call in the midst of that. It's from your bank. We need you to do something for us. It's really important. Next thing, you are in that sort of moment, and it's the situational vulnerability that's captured you. So we see with the scams quite often the timing is perfect. Probably a coincidence, but it's going to be more deliberate in future. And the
Mm-hmm.
research from the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK says that at any given time, probably 40 to 50% of the population in the UK is vulnerable. And people who are vulnerable are
Wow.
something like 12 times more likely to fall for a scam. So scam
Wow.
victims aren't idiots, which is the common perception. People who are just, if the scam arrives at the wrong time, you might fall for it. So therefore,
Mm.
just some basic things around, okay, never send money out of the blue for something unexpected. And
Mm-hmm.
if you just got that one thing in mind, that's the one thing I'd say
Yeah.
is you just got to remind
Okay.
yourself of that.
Yeah. So, you know, we have been worried about gun running and prostitution rings and so on, but clearly these scams are run by professional scam companies. Is that fair to say? And I'm sure there are some countries that produce more. And yes, I
Yeah.
know that those people, the scam artists, the individuals doing, are well trained, and yes, they probably have to feed their families, and that's why they're doing it. But
Yeah.
the people who are heading up these scam rings are the ones who really should be jailed, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they're beyond the reach. Sometimes it fails of, Western law enforcement. So I think what we've seen in the last few years is the rise of sort of, I'd call it state-tolerated scams. So organized crime, for example, in Russia, probably exists with the permission of, the Russian authorities, and perhaps even these days is encouraged. It's almost, I see it as a response to sanctions. The more we try and sanction Vladimir Putin and his oligarch friends, seizing the yachts and stopping them traveling and seizing the money, the more we potentially risk the tolerance and the kind of encouragement of scammers in Russia, for example. So there's a large influence of scams, for example, from Chinese organized crime. And Chinese organized criminals, according to the UN, potentially have trafficked up to 100,000 people who work in scam compounds in Southeast Asia. So they've kept pretty much virtual prisoners, having traveled to
Wow.
different countries in Southeast Asia, thinking they're getting a job. And I was in Cambodia in May, and in that in that single week I was in the capital, Phnom Penh, 3 people fell out of high-rise buildings and died. And those buildings had been associated with, organized crime and scam compounds. And,
Wow.
they're not the first deaths like that in suspicious circumstances. And apparently, the sort of theory is they're trying to escape their sort of slave masters, if you like. But
Yeah.
they get a job, they get people trafficked to Myanmar or Cambodia or the Philippines. They get forced to stay in a scam compound, and then they're forced to phone people and speak to people in the West to try and scam them. So this is a global industry. It affects global countries, and it's something which is huge people trafficking involved, organized crime, and unfortunately, it's become almost part of the economy now in some Southeast Asian countries. So it's big business.
This is so sad, Jason.
Yeah,
Raj, are you shocked? Are you shocked by all this data? I mean,
People are
this is,
actually these countries and lots of more countries, people are so greedy.
yeah.
yeah,
They want easy money.
exactly.
They want very easy
Yeah,
money.
yeah,
And if the guys watching the program, you go on my link. If people want to kind of follow me or contact me, I can be found on LinkedIn. It's Jason Costain. I
yeah.
did a post video from Cambodia, and I was shocked by the number of um, car dealerships selling supercars. So you've got a country where the average population, the average salary is something like $2,600 a year, and yet you've got
Oh,
more supercars driving
yeah.
around in Phnom
Oh,
Penh than I've seen in the UK in like very very wealthy areas. So you know
wow.
it's Chinese organized criminals. They're running offshore gambling operations because online gambling is illegal in China, but they move their operations offshore, and almost as a side hustle, they've got scam going on, scamming the West, and it's just a massive amount of money, a huge toll on poor victims, and it's actually they're attacking us. So it's this is
Yeah,
a scaled up, very well organized, very sophisticated opponent.
yeah,
So people need to
yeah,
think about it in
yeah.
that way. And when I was being driven around by a place called Sihanoukville in outside Phnom Penh on the coast, and my phone literally started to melt down. It was red hot. I was getting loads of text messages, and what it was a what's called an SMS blaster. So the organised criminals had set up their own cell tower, and my phone is designed to find the nearest cell tower. And it just so happens the nearest cell tower to me when I was driving around seeing Uckville looking at scam compounds. And this is 10-story high buildings with very strict security around them, 12-foot high fences, security guards, cameras, floodlights. And on the roof of the 12-story high building is a 12-foot high fence ringed with razor wire. So they are trying to keep people in. These are the buildings people are jumping out of to try and escape or to kill
Oh
themselves.
my God,
And
my
my phone's
God.
melting down because I'm getting multiple text messages from,
Yeah,
online casinos in Chinese, basically trying to get me to gamble. Now, this is the level of technology that's out there,
yeah,
and there's just been an SMS farm disrupted in Manhattan, I think. And you want to see the pictures? It's thousands of SIM cards in racks, and they're sending out millions of text messages. And I think the authorities in the US estimated they could have texted the entire population of the US within about half an hour. They have that much capability. So this is the
how
scale.
many? How many in half an hour?
It was something nuts. Like they could text the entire adult population of the US in terms of cell phones within about half an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, they have that much scale. So I'll try and find that story and post it on LinkedIn. But I couldn't believe it. But
Yeah,
you need to see the photos. And
yeah.
it's only when I was in Phnom Penh that I read about the third person within a few days dying in mysterious circumstances, and I thought this is just a different level. And I've worked in this for
Oh yeah,
25 years, but it's,
yeah.
it's a different level.
My God. Okay, so in terms of combating scams, so protecting ourselves, you said if someone is sending you an SMS or that they want money, phone the people. Make sure you're getting that the money is going to the right place. But let's talk about the banks and what should you expect from your bank when it comes to security? What are the telltale signs that your bank has weak fraud defenses? I mean, gosh, that's scary all on its own.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. I think because this is it, consumers, you can be careful, but ultimately you need your bank to help protect you. And that's where I think
Yeah.
from UK's example, I've worked in building defenses against scams to protect customers from falling victim for probably 10 years or more now. So there's that level of investment required. And I think a lot of other countries are a long way behind. But for example, a good bank in the UK, do not use SMS one-time passcodes. Now, I don't know how many people watching this, their bank sends them a one-time passcode sometimes via SMS. SMS can be broken. Your phone number can be stolen. Your SMS can be ported somewhere else. Criminals can impersonate your bank via SMS. All these things are possible. They can be technically sorted out, however, or defended against. SMS is just a weak channel. So if your bank is using SMS one-time passcodes, for me, that's technology that should have been got rid of about 5 years ago. So that's being pretty much eradicated now in the UK from banks because it's so weak. The other things is like, if you think about your life now, one of the biggest events in our online life now is when I get a new iPhone, for example. I use an iPhone. When I get a new phone, it's a big deal because my life is online. I log into my bank every day or two. They know it's me because it's my iPhone. So a good bank knows it's. They know what type of iPhone I've got. They know what type of which version of iOS I'm on. They know what apps are on my phone. They know which IP address I come in on, what my Wi-Fi is. They know that I'm likely to be using my phone and I'm right-handed because of the angle I typically use that and how I swipe across the screen.
Wow.
So the technology is sophisticated, and a lot of banks have now invested in this, more so in the UK than the US. So therefore, when a new device comes on for the first time onto your online banking, the bank should pay attention. And when you, as a customer of the bank, get a new phone, you should be paying attention, seeing the bank should really be thinking, this is a new device for Raj. Why is it? He's gone for a classic example was Raj uses an iPhone, and you might be iPhone 12, iPhone 13, iPhone 15. Hey, he's upgrading. It goes to Android. Why is Raj using an Android phone when he uses Apple? And then separately, there might be an Apple login just after the Android one. Why have we now got two devices? So banks now need to start looking at device behavior. And a big moment of truth in anyone's life is when you get a new device, when somebody changes their phone number, and when somebody changes their email address. So they are key things in our online lives that banks need to be looking out for. So I'd say, you should expect to be challenged by your bank. You should be able to go online and see what devices have been logging into your online banking, for example. You should be able to see online, what my payment limits are. So a great example here, this is unbelievable. So a friend of mine, friends of friends got scammed. They lost £90,000 in one day. They sent £90,000. Help them get it back. Help them get it back. But it's the phone call you don't want as a fraud person, which is Jason. How can I prove it was? How can I tell it was my bank calling? And like, what happened? Well, somebody phoned from the bank this morning and they said we needed to send money. What did you do? Well, I sent the money. So it's £90,000 gone within a few hours. Anyway, that led to a conversation with my pal. And I said, look, you need to protect your mum. And he said his mum was 90 and he had online banking access to her account. And I said, just check what payment limit she has. So he went online, and on her app, she banked with HSBC. His 90-year-old mother, HSBC had given her the ability to send £100,000, that's about $130,000 per day from her online bank accounts. So this is a 90-year-old lady who never sends payments more than a few $100s, can send $130,000 in a single payment in a single day.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
My friend was horrified and quickly reduced their payment limit to £5,000. Now, the victims of the scam that we both knew who'd sent 90,000, they banked with Barclays, and this is going back 6 months. When I said to them, let's go on your Barclays app, see if we can reduce your payment limits, because you don't really need to send more than a few £1,000s, do you? They said, no, and if we did, we'd probably go into the local branch. When they went on to Barclays, there wasn't the ability to reduce the payment limit. So a good bank will have thought, what do
Wow.
our customers need? And let's place these controls into the hands of our customers. And a
Right.
very good
Yeah.
bank, and
Yeah.
when I worked at NatWest, would actually reduce payment limits for customers
Yeah.
proactively and only then
Yeah.
allow people to have high limits if they wanted them and perhaps had some
Yeah.
education before they took them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
a good bank should really be giving you the chance to reduce your limits. A very good bank should be saying, would you like
No.
to?
Yeah. No, all of this is predicated on the fact that the banks themselves are secure and that they won't be taken by scam artists. Because, I mean, all of our banking, if they've got all this iPhone stuff, oh my God, what a horrible thing that could turn out to be. So, listen,
Yeah.
last question.
Yeah.
How likely are scams to evolve? And I'm almost afraid to ask that question. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's inevitable that scams are going to become more sophisticated. But I'd say really what I would expect, you can talk about artificial intelligence and fake voices and all that stuff, but ultimately, scams are just going to become incrementally more plausible. So criminals are going to get better at spotting telltale signs like the fact that I was traveling and therefore I might be using a new, mobile phone number. If somebody's buying a house, they might have compromised, your lawyer. You might therefore be expecting your lawyer to contact you to say, I need your deposit for your house sending through now,
Yeah.
please. So,
Yeah.
when you book a hotel, if the hotel's been compromised by criminals, it's not going to be unusual for you to get an email from the hotel saying, "Hey guys, a special offer. Would you, for an extra, $300, you can book a advanced suite in the hotel and a special package. Send us the money." All these things can happen, but criminals are going to be more adept at getting the timing right, getting some context right in terms of your life and what's going on, and therefore it's going to be more plausible to you. So I just think we can expect to see scams becoming more plausible, and that's the worry. So therefore, have the discussion with your family, and now particularly your elders and your kids as well, and just have the chat. At the minute you find yourself spending money on something, being asked, there's a sense of urgency to send something, or you're thinking of investing, that's the time to be most careful.
Yeah. Wow. I was just thinking things have changed. I was in the Canadian diplomatic service for years, and I had top security clearance, so I had to work in a triple vault to code and
Mm.
decode all the highly classified information, and then we would give it to our the CSIS people, the Secret Service people that were working in that country, and I mean that was a big deal then. Just that.
No.
And I used to have to carry red bags full of top secret information from city to city because I was part of my job was being a diplomatic courier. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that was nothing compared to what you are talking here today. We've got a major global problem. Major.
Yeah.
And lots of awareness and information required. In here, I am happy the government and the media and they are doing so much active job. Every day we are getting message, online voice messages and government guidelines. Don't share your KYC, your ID number, anything. The Jason guided us. So this is very important for citizen in every country to advertisement, awareness, information through media, channel, SMS, WhatsApp, so people can save their life in this
Yeah.
scammers.
Yeah. Well, Jason, we could keep you forever, but we're over time here, and I deliberately let it go because this is, as I said, and I repeat, probably one of, or if not the most important topic that we could have on our podcast. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being our guest here today, and you can come back anytime. We can continue this conversation in more detail. Thank you so much. Okay.
Great to talk. Thank you. Thanks, Raj.
Thank you, Jason. Bye.